Assalamualaikum. Today we will present to you about analysis of minimum wage and distribution in Malaysia. Before that, my name is Muhammad Arif Zini bin Abdul Malik. My metric number is 1180812. So minimum wages are described as the bare minimum of payment that an employer is compelled to pay wage earners for labours completed during a certain time, which cannot be decreased by collective bargaining or an individual contract. This term relates to the legally enforceable character of minimum wages. Regardless of how they are set, minimum wages can be established by statute, judgment of a competent authority, a wage board, a wage council, or industrial or labour courts of tribunals. Minimum Minimum salaries can also be established by making terms of collective bargaining agreements legally binding. The goal of minimum wages is to safeguard employees from unfairly low compensation. They contribute to ensuring a reasonable and equal share of the rewards of progress for everyone, as well as a minimum living wage for all employed and in need of such protection. Minimum wages can also be part of a strategy to combat poverty and eliminate inequality, especially disparity between men and women, by advocating the right to equal pay for equal labor. In Malaysia, minimum wage refers to lowest gross wage per month, and it does not apply to apprentices and domestic servants. The Malaysian government announced that nationwide implementation of minimum wages in July 2020, and in the same year, the Minimum Wages Order 2020 came to being. The law was then enforced on January 1, 2013, that was barely a decade ago. At that time, the minimum wage rates for West Malaysians were RM900 ringgit per month and RM4 ringgit per hour. The law is one of the government's policy instruments by new economic model to ensure inclusiveness by transforming the economy from a middle income to a high income economy by the year 2020. Next is define the problem. Given recent events in Malaysia, it is unsurprising that employers are dissatisfied with the recent hike in the minimum wage. The revelation of the modification during the postponement of budget 2020 took company off guard since they expected it to happen much later. Considering that the minimum wage had only been raised to RM1,100 at the beginning of 2019. The Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers requested the government to execute the increase on a pre-planned and pre-announced basis. The sector is not opposed to a rise in the minimum wage, but the government must present a clear and specific roadmap for the phases of increases, including regions of coverage, to bring clarity and stability to the business. The main problem when the minimum wage is low is that inflation increases every year. The rising cost of living every year due to certain factors makes the minimum wage received insufficient to cover their subsistence needs. Not to mention who has a large family that has to bear their daily needs. Some of them have to do 2 or 3 jobs a day just to cover their monthly expenses due to the insufficient salary from the main job. Even if compared to our neighbor country, Indonesia, our minimum wage is lower. Based on statistics from the Department of Statistics, the average household income at the national level increased by 4.3% in the period between 2016 and 2019, while the average disposable income increased by 4.5% over the same period. The question is, do these statistics reflect reality, especially after an unprecedented pandemic? The average monthly household consumption expenditure also increased at a rate of 4% during the period 2016 until 2019. However, food prices continue to rise when compared to other items, and as B40 households are more likely to spend on food, a consistent increase in food prices will cause this group of households to be affected by higher inflation rates. In addition, household debt is at high level. The level of financial literacy of Malaysia is also unsatisfactory, especially among yours. That's all. So I will pass for the next presenter.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Badrul Munir Bezukanai, metric number 11800763. So I will continue to the data and the graph. So the first graph shows that the minimum wages paid in Malaysia from 2013 until 2021. So for the information, the minimum wages policy is announced in 2013 and started from 2013. So in 2013, the minimum wages is started from RM 900 and remain same amount until 2015 and increase in 2016, which is an increase RM 100 to RM 1000 in 2016 until 2018. And for 2019, increase RM 100 to 1100, and 2020 increase 100 again to 1200, and the same amount in 2031. So as we can see, the graph shows that the increment of minimum wages paid in Malaysia is 100 increment, and starting from 900 to 1200. So as we can see, the highest minimum wages paid is start from 2020. So this minimum wages policy is applicable for local workers and foreign workers. So next, we go to the second graph. The second graph shows the mean salaries and wages paid in Malaysia by strata, urban and rural. The mean is referred to the average monthly salary paid for the employees in Malaysia. This graph we got from Department of Statistics Malaysia. We can see from the graph the lowest mean is on 2015, which are 2,638 ringgit for urban, 1,831 ringgit for rural, and the highest mean is on 2019, which are 3,401 ringgit for urban, 2,220 for rural. So we go to the third graph. The third graph, we put this graph because it's related with the minimum wages and the mean salaries and wages paid in Malaysia. The third graph shows the consumer price index in Malaysia. The consumer price index in Malaysia on November 2021. From the chart shows that the increase in indices of 5 groups, which are group of transportation, housing, food and non-alcoholic beverage, furnishings and restaurant. Because the consumer price index is increased, the people will facing the difficulties in spending the money, because people get the lower income, the lower minimum wage, so people do not have the purchasing power. So the purchasing power, consumer purchasing power will decrease due to the minimum wages or income that they get, the lower income that they get. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Rahman, metric number 11800797. For solution in settle down the problem of minimum wages part, there are few solutions in settle down the problem, which is number one is by increase the minimum wages rate in Malaysia. The government suggested increasing the national minimum wage in Malaysia, which was previously RM 1,200, which is not sufficient to support the monthly household expenditure. It can help the government to reduce the poverty level, as absolute poverty also increased from 5.6% in 2019 to 8.4% in 2020. Then, this rise may improve the livelihood of low-income families, and it may help in increase the amount of disposable income of low-income families. As based on the Consumer Price Index 2020, the purchasing power of Malaysia household consumption recorded 83.3%, declining 16.7% over a decade. With these rises, the government can improve its national spending as less money will be spent on social programs by the government. Lastly, it will help to reduce mental and physical health of Malaysians as they have happy life and enough nutrient to eat.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Haziq Izzuddin bin Hamizi, matric number 1180814. Will explain about recommendation and solutions. The way we can improve the minimum wages, we can improve by improving and amending labor laws. By improving and amending labor's law, especially the Employment Act 1955, by changing the minimum wage rate of 1,200 to be increased into 1,800 as proposed by employee in the public civil servant QPEX. In the meantime, the government needs to study and strive to increase the minimum wages rate in stage to ensure that employment can continue their business and maintain employment. The government also must take into account that the proposal of the increase the minimum wage rate must be reasonable and not affect the economy and be able to maintain the country's competitiveness to attract foreign investors. Other than that, the way we can improve minimum wages is by employees should be provided with training and be given a professional certificate that shows that they are worthwhile, especially to young people or workers from rural areas, as they represent the backbone of the company and workforce. Skills and training also should be prioritized to build the human capital needed to fulfill industry demands and also to generate a productivity gain for companies as well as ascend to the value chains. And finally, to we can also set the rate of pay equal to the urban area. Government and private agency also should work together to implement a rural development project by providing a business venues, a capital marketing advice, a training and business relationship to help Bumiputra start businesses. The government also need to formulate a policies to advance development effort in the field of modern trade and rural enterprise activities, which can reduce the income gap. Enterprises and outside workers can seek support and advice from the institutions such as Mara, Felda and Pernas to set up a new enterprise for them. I think that's all from us. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Yusof Al-Hakim bin Siddiq, matric number 1180807. Then I will go to the conclusion. Okay, we know that nowadays the cost of living in every nation is rising every year. So there are three solutions about the minimum wage in Malaysia. The first one is increase the minimum wage in Malaysia. The second one is the government need to control goods and services price, and the third one is enhance skilled labor. So our group discuss and we take the first solution, which is to raise the minimum wage in Malaysia. That's all.